Hey everyone, it's Jason from GameRaveTV, otherwise known as Danger Boy, and this is Pause Mode. Now, admittedly, last Pause Mode we kind of tore into the Saturn's version of Mortal Kombat 2, and the Saturn's actually a really good system, it just had a lot of bad ports. So I figured for this Pause Mode we'd tackle a game that's amazing on the Sega Saturn, and an interesting tribute, if you will. And that game is Die Hard Arcade. Now, the game, if you didn't know where it came from, is like a slapstick parody version of the Die Hard movie. You've got John McClane with a blonde girl named Chris, and the two of you are doing kung fu, punching, kicking, jumping, kicking, all these random typical Japanese bad guys through what is essentially the Nakatomi building. There's just one problem. It's not Die Hard. The game you're actually playing is called Dynamite Dika, or Dynamite Detective from Japan. It was actually an arcade game by Sega that ran on their Titan hardware. And the reason why it was dubbed Die Hard when it got to America is because if you take one look at the artwork for the game, dear God, they just took Bruce Willis's face and slapped it on a video game. Now, all movie references, intentional or unintentional aside, the game is actually really, really fun and a blast to play. What makes the game so much fun in terms of a laugh with your friend situation would be that the context of it being Die Hard makes the enemy characters that much funnier. If you're playing Streets of Rage or Final Fight, you expect like all the cliches, like, you know, the scampy women and the, you know, Japanese wrestler and so forth. But here in Die Hard Arcade, none of that existed in the movie. So when you're playing John McClane, quote unquote, and you realize all the situations the Japanese development team referenced but made it their own, the game is hysterical. Like in the original movie, the bad guys use an ambulance to sneak into the Nakatomi building's parking area. Here in Die Hard Arcade, it's a fire truck, and they're all dressed as firemen. So you are essentially beating up firemen and getting hosed down with the hose from the fire truck. There's a weird S&M angle from that, but that's for a different video. And as the game goes on, it just gets goofier and goofier. You take on robots, you take on aforementioned sumo wrestler. There's your typical sports football player, giant guy you have to beat up. And then mixed in with all this craziness is, besides them trying to steal the money from the vault, they just happen to throw in the president's daughter that just happened to be hiding in the desk where the bad guy is sitting. Oh, Japan. Now, while the game is great in its own right, there are actually two gameplay elements that really, really bring the game to its full tee-hee situation. Built into the game, in the original arcade game, are what essentially are QuickTime events. When you're running from sequence to sequence, there's a chance that you have to press either the kick or the jump or the punch button to do a situation. If you win, you carry on. If you lose, you either lost health or you had to take an extra scene to fight the character that you didn't, hit on the way in. The other Saturn side of the equation is Deep Scan. Deep Scan is an old Sega arcade game in which you basically play a ship dropping charge mines onto enemy subs. On the disc, your score in Deep Scan is converted into continues for Die Hard Arcade. So basically, if you don't want to use the standard 4 continues in the game, you can play this one first and try and give yourself more tokens and credits, which is crazy because you could technically spend an hour playing Deep Scan before you even got to Die Hard Arcade. I think it's the only time I've ever seen a situation like that where you got to play a game to essentially play a game more. So you're asking yourself, damn, if this game's so much fun, obviously there has to be a downside. This is Pause Mode. There's actually one very, very small downside to the game itself, and then a huge downside to the actual purchasing of the game. The in-game downside is that because it's mimicking the arcade game, basically, you would, instead of going through a long level, you're in situations. And you'd go to situation, the screen would black out, and go to the next situation. The Sega Saturn uses this blackout situation to act as the loading times. And especially when I was doing the video work for this, you see the black screen a lot. It can get annoying if you're beating the enemies up very quickly. It's almost like a constant load time, but not really. Now, on the purchasing side, Die Hard Arcade isn't exactly rare, but it's insanely in demand. It's one of the few Saturn games outside of the Working Designs RPGs that can, and Panzer Dragoon Saga for that matter, commands anywhere from between $40 to $100 based on the game's condition. I don't know if Saturn emulation has reached a point yet where it's easier to just emulate it, but if you can track the game down, it's totally worth it. Alright guys, that does it for this week's Pause Mode. We will see you next week with GameRaveTV with some more PlayStation goodies, and we continue our march to September with the anniversary. Oh, so many fun things are going on. Take care, you guys. Have a great one.